Saamdu Chetri, welcome to the World Happiness Week, founding member of the World Happiness Foundation, former executive director of G&H Center, and probably, the most important for me is I really see you as a brother, as a dasho, as you say in Bhutan, and I feel that there are really few people in the world with as much wisdom on so many subjects as you do. So I just want to say thank you so much for being part of the journey that I'm personally taking, and for sharing so much over the last years. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for everything you do. And with that in mind, as you know, the big topic that we are studying and dissecting during this week is the concept of dukkha, the concept of suffering, the concept of overcoming dukkha. But why don't we start there? Why don't we get some light about what is dukkha, and how we actually overcome suffering?
Thank you, Luis. I feel so nourished by just your presence, and I feel so happy to be a part of you, in fact, in this big journey that you have embarked, and I'm happy to be definitely a part in it. Well, dukkha has been very loosely translated into suffering, but it has manifold meanings of dukkha. There's no time really to explain it, but let's take sufferings as the point. Sufferings of mind, sufferings from material and non-material things. What Buddha had to say on dukkha, let me try to translate also very loosely, not exactly, because it's not possible. He said, as long as the earth exists, dukkha in human beings will follow like a shadow. So it is whether you are a king on a throne or a beggar on the street, you have different forms of dukkha, and you will be suffering. Like recently, our king in Bhutan had a big dukkha, and his dukkha was, how can I protect my people in Bhutan from the pandemic, from the COVID-19? This was a big dukkha that he carried. So Buddha says that the dukkha exists in all of us. The second truth that he finally decodes for us is that the cause of dukkha or the suffering is having tied oneself to material things that are momentary. So he's talking about tying ourselves with material things, which translates into attachment, which the Buddhist world talks so much about. So the attachment actually brings us suffering because we cannot live in the present moment. When you're attached with things, we are either living in the past or in the future. So he says there is a way out. So what is the way out? Buddha says, the third thing he says is, for cessation of dukkha, we have to awaken our awareness. We will talk a little more on the awareness a little later. And we have to keep focused all the time, whether we get sad news or the glimpses of happiness. We have to keep our mind very firm in the mid path, in the middle way. So Buddhists also talk so much about the mid path. It's like giving an example. If you tighten the guitar string too strong, the pitch will be very high and there is chances for the string to break. If you tie it too loose, the music that comes will be very low and not to the point that rhythm that you want. So it has to be tight in the midway that it gives us a good music. Then he says, if we create our awareness and be focused all the time, then we will find this path where dukkha can be broken. It can be broken. So he says, on this path, the connection with dukkha will break and the highest form of truth will arise. So I believe the highest form of truth in what Buddha says is happiness, because Buddha never mentioned happiness concretely or by itself in any of his teachings. So what is sukha? In the folds of dukkha is hidden sukha. Sukha is also a loose translation into happiness. So is happiness definable? Of course, if you look into previous thinkers like Aristotle, Confucius, Tao, they all talked about in their definition the process, day-to-day process of our lives. Now, if you come later to Mahatma Gandhi, he says, is the way we think, the way we say, and the way we act, if they are in synchronicity, then we are happy. Dalai Lama says that happiness is not ready-made, it is from the action that it comes. And even Einstein says that when you live a modest life and a calm life, you are happier. So all these, when you translate them, they all focus into our process of life, our karma yoga, the duty of a karmic person, thinking about the cause and effect. How can we bring no harm to self and others? That is a journey that all happy people would follow, according to what people have been saying. Now, during Buddha's time, a lady, very distressed, very unhappy, came to him. He was sitting and meditating, and he said, Buddha, I want happiness. Buddha, I want happiness. She was wailing. That moment, Buddha opened his eyes, filled with peace and love, and said, drop I, that is an ego. Drop want, that is a desire. And she was suddenly enlightened because she found happiness is an inward journey. It is not a goal, rather a state of mind, actually, an inner quality and being at peace. This is happiness, according to what I think. It is neither hedonic. Hedonic is much to do with pleasure, that's fleeting, momentary, and it's feel-good moods. Nor it is eudaimonic, because that is only focusing to purpose and meaning of life, but rather a combination of both is desirable. So in our Bhutanese context of gross national happiness, we say that it is a balance between the material and the spiritual needs of the body and mind in a very conducive environment that is looked after by the culture and the nature. So to get to this point, how to overcome dukkha, let us get into more deep of understanding, knowing ourselves. Also trying to find out our awareness. What is it? Where are the three realms that we need to practice? And also we need to live with values every day. And how does perception change our minds, and that we see things in a dualistic form. So if we can overcome these four areas, we will definitely always be residing in the moment of happiness. So according to Sanatan Dharma, which is loosely translated, or rather can kind of spoiled by the British India, calling it Hinduism, Sanatan means eternal, always, forever, and Dharma means duty. So every human being had their eternal duty towards something. And that something happens to be Bhagavan. Bhagavan in India means God. Now let's decode. We know about ourselves because I know my likes, dislikes, so as others also know about me. But do I know myself? Do you know yourself? Not about yourself. Then the question comes that we do not know really ourselves. So how can we find? And if we know this, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning that the whole world is my family. It's like the Africans saying, Ubuntu, I am because of you. Now let's decode and see this, what it means. If we go back to our birth, we have not decided to take birth. Neither have our parents. We came through a natural selection process. Now the haploid, a half seed of a father, enters into the mother's womb, where there is another half seed waiting. They combine and become one seed, which is called the diploid, or it's called also the zygote. Now that one seed, which is barely visible to our naked eye, which is 0.0005 inches, so small, that has all the coding, how our nose should be formed, our eyes should be formed, heart, and all the elements of the body. But how do they form? How do they grow into a baby? It's from the food, the nourishment mother takes. What nourishment? The food that the ground, the earth grows, the air, oxygen, the sun, the heat that provides, the water that gives life. All these are combining effect for that one cell diploid. After the two haploids get together, one diploid that multiplies and divides into this process in forming a baby. We are born from baby onto a big grown man, huge man. When you put an average of the cells, the genetic science says that we have 37.2 trillion cells on average human being. Now, this is built out of food that we have eaten. So, Bhagavan, when we decode the word Bhagavan, Bha stands for Bhumi. Bhumi means earth. Now, according to Vedanta, the ancient Indic science, they say that 12% of our body form is earth, meaning the food that is grown on the planet Earth, nourished by its mineral, the water, the air, the sun, everything. That actually gives us the livelihood and we are alive. Bha stands for Bhumi, the earth, that we say our body form is 12% according to Vedanta. Second word stands in Bhagavan, Ga stands for Gagan, the sky. Sky has no contribution in the form, but the five senses that are assigned to be outside of this planet coming from somewhere in the sky. So Ga. A stands for Agni, the fire, which is also considered as 8% in our body. Now imagine, we have 37.2 trillion cells, and the genetic science, they say that every cell constitutes of 1.4 volts equivalent of energy. Now, if you multiply 1.4 volts equivalent of energy into 37.2 trillion cells, we are a walking field of something like 52 trillion voltage. If we combine all the voltage of this planet Earth, probably one person has even more. That's the heat, that is the energy that we carry. That's why the moment we close our eyes and think moon, sun, the different heavenly bodies, our mind, we are there. So that's the power of our energy. And they say that energy has 8%. Now imagine that 37.2 trillion cells, even every cell requires a tip of a pin, tip of a needle amount of oxygen, because oxygen is required by every cell, food is required by every cell, it gets combustion there, so you get rejuvenated, new cells are produced, repaired, all that happens, right? So now you can imagine, even if that was a tip of a needle amount per cell multiplied by 37.2 trillion cells, we are talking about huge amount of air that we every day carry with us, which is also Vedanta says 8% of our body mass is air. Then comes the Na. After Va comes Vayu, the Na, Nir is water. And Vedanta says 72% of our body constitutes of water. Now, when you add all this, we have 100% of the element earth in us. So who are we really? What is different from anybody? So that's why I am, because you are. We are all in the interdependence. We are completely one in our form of the body mass. But something that we don't know is our own subconsciousness, how it has developed, where it has come from, which actually gives us the different perceptions in life and living. But this is other side. That consciousness is the different aspect of it. But if we only know who we are, then we would be able to nourish our Mother Earth, because we will never use chemicals, because we know that comes to us anyway. We will never spew any wrong things into the air because we breathe air. We will never pollute our waters. We will take care of those things because those things are in all of us, each one of us. And that's why I am because of you. Genetic science also goes further to say that all the genes in plants and animals are in us. So they talk about like over 80% of the genes of cows and dogs are in us. More than 60% of banana and other food genes are in us. Quarter of rice genes are in all plants and animals, whether they're undersea or above ground, they're genetically, we are a part of them. And that's why when we go into the nature, we are depressed feeling lonely, we go into the nature, quickly we have a calming effect, simply because our organisms connect with them. Now imagine when you begin to destroy a part of it constantly, who are we destroying? We are destroying ourselves, isn't it? So we are destroying collectively the whole of the planet Earth by destroying some parts of the planet Earth. If you go back to the history, like, it's, I think, 9,000 years ago, but recorded about 5,000 from the carbon dating, that where, Krishna was living, the Krishna avatar, people would know. In the Kutch area, they have found under a sea a huge 70 square miles area where his ruled, where his palace was. Now, during that time, 400 years ago, 4,000 years ago, it has gone under the sea. During that, it said that, there was a huge volcano eruption somewhere, probably in Indonesia, and a huge tsunami that could have put this underwater. And the total amount of people that is counted in the world that lived is about 1,200. And today we are 7.5 billion from this 1,200. So who's different? That's the reason why our DNAs are matching. 99% of our DNAs are matching. We also belong to the nature, and we all belong to one another. And that's I am because of you. We need to practice gratitude from the time morning we wake up from our bed. We just pull ourselves against the bedpost, think about yesterday, how it went, try to build today better than yesterday, put a resolve for today or an intention for today, meditate for 6 months, 6 minutes. When you get down onto the, on your feet, say thank you to Mother Earth for letting us live on her today and for bearing with us for all the nonsense that we do. And then when you go into the room, into the bathroom, on the mirror, see the person that you find and try to give positive self-affirmation to that person, to do things for self and others. All right. So this is something that we can take this journey. And there are, of course, ways out. This is one way. Understanding the self is the first way. If we understand ourselves, we will go out of dukkha, because dukkha is in our own actions. So when we unfold ourselves, we will find a proper way to get into sukha, the happiness realm. So there are 3 realms, areas that we need to understand, which Buddha talked about, the 8-fold paths. The first realm is wisdom. We have to cultivate wisdom. Through this wisdom can be cultivated through pure thoughts or right thoughts or true thoughts or correct thoughts, because the word used is samyak, and it's difficult to translate. It can mean anything. So if people have used the term right, let's use the term right. So right thoughts, right understanding, 2 of these would make wisdom. Moral, we have to have good moral, and that moral is translated by our right livelihood. Let's imagine that even if we buy a piece of cloth, how does that affect me, the planet Earth, the producers, everybody? We see any little action we take has direct implication to others. If we eat meat, we are killing. We are killers because we are butchers. We are eating, that's why the butchers are killing. To be compassionate human being is not easy. So we have to think, my every action, how does it relate to others? So that's why I said in the very beginning, do not harm with the action or thought yourself and anybody, because the moment you harm others, you are harming yourself. You have to learn to be a deep listener, to step into the shoe of the other person, become very empathic, and as well as also speak a loving language, the language that you would like to listen. In the same way, based on this, we have to develop our character through habits, and that is mindfulness, living in the present moment, trying to be focused in what we do, be very concentrative, and put our right efforts every moment of our living. This would take us to a right journey. But the other practice that I feel very important to be connected with oneness, what we call Brahma Birha. It's the immeasurable virtue that we all need to live with, through our mindfulness practice, through our meditation practices, is to create an love that has no boundaries, love that has no conditions. And if we can build that love, then everything is possible, because we can then create these four pillars of Brahma, that is eternal, stage of oneness, the sublime stage of oneness. We can create that stage for ourselves, and these are, mudita, or joy, creating joy through relationship with family, friends, everybody, with the world outside of us. The other one is upeksha, or upeka, they call it. It's upeksha, the Sanskrit terminology, which is equanimity, really bringing everything in calmness, without seeing anybody with that difference, but bringing everybody as same, looking through a totally different perspective altogether. And then, of course, karuna, the compassion that we need to arise. All of this cannot arise without love. And then finally, also we need to bring out our maitri, or our loving kindness, the humanity part of it. So, and loving kindness is not a great thing. You just imagine you people in your mind, and you send your loving kindness to them. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be free from fear, may you be free from sufferance, may you be loved by everyone, may you bring happiness to others. Things like this. This is loving kindness that you can share, just bringing somebody in your mind. And all these four virtues that we can practice through our meditation. Compassion, we can bring the suffering person in our mind, and we can send our love, our affection to this person. All this can be practiced throughout just by sitting in a space. Then comes, finally, this is my final area, the perception. How does the perception arise? Perception arises according to the genetic biogenesis. We see that a child from mother's womb, from that 0 age to 8 years after being born, the child, whatever senses, mother senses, when the child is in the stomach, mother listens, and when the child is born, the awareness, the senses, the listening, all that codes into the child. And whatever code it had come, it only either enforces those codes to believe in more, or brings a new epigenesis with a new coding there, depending on how the child visualizes, sees, understands his or her world between 0 to 8, from mother's womb to outside of it. This is what gets into our subconscious, and all that translates out is consciously from the subconscious, which is called the subconscious bias. When you're shown a picture, 10 people will say 10 different things on that picture, basically because of this, psychologists call it implicit bias. This is what is actually trying to project to us. But this can also be learned when we are able to see things as they are, without dividing bad, good, beautiful, ugly. But when we are able to see things as they are, then we are able to nurture that part of our subconscious, and we can also block it and create a new epigenesis for us to change our whole life. That is why when you keep on saying same thing, self-affirming yourself again and again and again and again, we start to see the reality the way we would have self-imagined or self-confirmed ourselves. This is the reality. And with this, we can develop our consciousness, the way we understand, live, we sense things, we nourish ourselves better. And when our conscious is better, we become a greater human being. And of course, we can also be enlightened, because Buddha said, enlightenment power is everyone, in every one of us. I think I'll stop there now. And maybe if there's time, ask me other questions.
Yes, this is fantastic, Saamdu. Yeah, listening to you, I was actually reflecting as I was listening, and the first thought is, well, we basically have to unlearn who we are in many ways because the way we've been raised in so many parts of the world uh, complicates things so much that unless we follow the noble paths that you are sharing, it's gonna be very difficult for so many people to manage and to unlock that dukkha. Do you have any recommendations where to start if we want to unlearn who we are?
Thank you. Thank you so much for this beautiful question. Yes, I remember asking this very thing to an American and a lady, and she said, "It's too late for me to unlearn and relearn again." so I'm with you. But I think the small step that we can take, any journey, we all know the first step we have to take. So that first step would be really to understand ourselves. Who are we really? And when we understand deeply ourselves, then we start to understand others. It becomes very easy. Outside of us, it becomes very, very easy to understand. And I think I did speak about that we are built up of all the five elements on this planet Earth. And each one of us is the same. We need to feel that if someone is having pain, then the pain will come to me too, because we are built up of the same thing. If we can just live on that and bring this understanding in next 45 days or 21 days, if we practice 40 minutes of every day of our time, just nourishing our mind with this. After that, the journey becomes very simple. You can very easily start to take steps into getting into the sublime virtues, the four virtues to practice through meditation. Your meditation practice is good enough because those will translate into actions later on. So the first step we need to take is definitely to understand ourselves. And that is where we'll also unlearn. We'll know when we understand who we are, then we will know, the way that I'm thinking, the way I've been perceiving, the way I'm living is really untrue. It's truth from a different perspective. But now the truth unfolds is something very simple. That's why we say life is so simple and human beings have complicated it. So the first step would be that, definitely.
And just one final question around. Okay, let's say that the first step is to understand who we are, and what is the first step to understand who we are?
For this, the first step is to really try to say that I need to, because the pain is with everybody, dukkha is with everybody. So this dukkha will become actually the monitor for us to rethink our paradigm. So first thing is the way the dukkha, you have to take what dukkha I have, because that dukkha is probably not the same with others. So based on this dukkha, we all know that today we have global sufferance, we have climate crisis. This has become a big sufferance, and I know it is in everyone's mind. Now, if this is in everyone's mind, we need to start to say, okay, I need to shift my paradigm. How does these things happen? Why is it happening? Then we come to the same conclusion that I am Bhagavan. Bhagavan, the God, I am God. God is in me and I'm in God. The loose translation of Bhagavan is God in Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma. So when you understand this, then the realization becomes very simple and easy for shifting that paradigm, shifting that shift. So we need to understand, the first thing is, what is my paradigm? Where am I? What is the journey I need to take? I think that realization has to come. Otherwise, we can't enforce anyone saying, you do this and you'll be in happiness. No, the person has to realize what is dukkha he or she lives with. And we need to start from that point of view.
Wow, love it. I am Bhagawan, I am.
Yes,
That
exactly.
that could be really really powerful. Oh my goodness. Well, Saamdu Chetri, this is always incredible learning from you. Thank you so much for sharing this window with this wisdom, and we'll keep going deeper and deeper. Probably next time in Bhutan when we meet and we go to that mountain and we climb to the temple, or we go rafting through the river. But
Right.
thank you so much for sharing all who you are.
Thank you so much, Luis. Can I take 2 minutes of your time?
Sure.
Um, so I would like to wish all the viewers Tashidele. Tashidele means let all the auspiciousness arise and come to you. And I would like to wish you, this is my loving kindness to you. May you be well and happy. May you find happiness in whatever you do. May you bring happiness to people that you touch. May you be the light for yourself, your family, your friends, and the world. With this, I would like to sing a happiness song and end it.
Please.
Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And I'm not in a hurry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Somewhere to go, something to do, but I'm not in a hurry. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Tassi Delek.
Tashidele.